Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Everyone, welcome back. We have a conversation today with a coach named Daniel Cianci and his story about overcoming a stutter, learning to speak up for himself. It's really inspiring. So let me introduce you to him. He is a keynote speaker, coach, and host of the Redefining Wisdom podcast. Known as a reality architect, Daniel helps high performers, entrepreneurs, and growth-minded leaders break free from outdated identities and rewire the subconscious stories that keep them stuck. His work blends neuroscience, psychology, and timeless wisdom with lived experience. Having grown up with a stutter and the belief that his voice didn't matter, Daniel knows firsthand what it's like to hide behind fear and old survival strategies. Today, he uses those lessons to empower others to stop overproving and start living, leading, and creating from a place of clarity and confidence. Let's dive into the conversation. Welcome, Daniel. I am thrilled to have this conversation to you because I know you have some amazing things to say about identity and reality as well.
Hey, Alana, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
So let's just dive in. Who are you and what is the work that you're doing right now? And then let's go to what you were doing beforehand. But let's start with now.
Now, all right,
Yeah.
okay. So, as you mentioned, I'm Daniel, and what I do is I do have a podcast on the side, but mostly I'm focusing on keynote speaking and coaching around people's identities, how people can break from being stuck, whether you are a professional or somebody who's just trying to get stuck on your love life, career, anything that has to do with our subconscious beliefs.
Okay, so you just said an interesting word there, which is stuck, which is, I'd say, the primary reason people go to see a coach, right? I'm feeling stuck, like I don't know what to do. What do you have to say about stuckness?
Yeah, stuckness, what I've come to realize is that most people are not stuck because of their skills or their potential or their circumstances. And by the way, I've been one of those. I'm guilty of that. Just FYI, that if I'm stuck, it's because of not enough money or not enough opportunities or not enough time or the government, the economy, my partner, the way that I was raised. And we have this belief that the trap is outside of us, but the real trap of why we're stuck is in the story. It's in the story inside our mind. And basically, it's almost like when we have an unconscious belief, whether that I'm not good enough or success is not for people like me, or money's bad, or I'm unlovable, whatever those unconscious beliefs are, it shapes how we see the world, it shapes how we react to it, and that's how we keep stuck. But then we keep thinking, well, if I just had this, or if I just had that. And we keep running in these loops without realizing that it's always been within us, and by changing that, we can sort of get out of it.
Yes. It is like a filter through which we see the world, right? And it's not to say that the external circumstances don't play a factor. However, it really, this is something that I've also figured out. It dramatically changes how we see the world and what the options are because we just close down, we close down, we close down. And then it's like we have this tunnel vision as to what we can do. And then those decisions from that tunnel vision perspective, they kind of they change our identity.
Absolutely. And yes, I do agree with you that obviously outside circumstances matter, because if you're depending on which country you live on, and depending how was your upbringing, if you grew up in a broken family, all of that obviously just really, really affects or affects your chances of succeeding in life or making it in life. But also at the same time, I like how you mentioned, it's like this tunnel vision, because we keep having these beliefs and how we, as you said, it's a filter, it's the lens where we see how we experience reality. So for instance, In my case, I can give you a little bit of background how I sort of transformed my life by understanding how everything works. I started for 20 years, like bad starter. To me, just speaking out in class, reading from a book, having conversation with people, used to be very, very hard. I would get interrupted all the time, and obviously bullied, mocked, and rejected. And for me, my brain, in order to keep me safe, adopted a story that silence was safer than being rejected. So I started being quiet. I started playing small. I started just being, I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not going to give my opinion because it is too painful to see how people are impatiently waiting for you to say those words. Or if you say something, they'll dismiss you. And when you fall into that, instead of you hearing encouragement, you hear judgment. It could be the exact same sentence, but your brain reads it as, no, that is judgment. I'm not going to say anything. It could be encouragement. And the person might really want you to speak up, but because your lens is different based on the old story, that's how you get trapped. And then you start realizing, wait a minute, why do I have to be silent? Who said that my ideas didn't matter? And then you start uncovering those beliefs. And the moment that you start realizing, wait, nobody told me this. I created those quote unquote rules. Well, what if I change them? Because if you think about it, we are kind of the creators of our own reality, creators of our own human experience. Well, if I'm already doing something that it doesn't serve me, kind of sucks. How about if I do it the other way? And that's how you start sort of exploring the deeper layers of your story, identities, and subconscious mind.
Yes, because that example of the stutter is so interesting because that's devastating for a lot of people. Like it creates so much. I mean, as you're talking about it, it's like I can just imagine you want to shut down, right? You just feel like my words don't matter, becomes embarrassing. And then there is that story, then, just like you were explaining, that I shouldn't say anything. And it's not safe to say anything. And so then that becomes the story that just like spreads throughout the whole experience, the whole life experience. And everyone, I think, has a stutter experience. Like, it's not necessarily a stutter, but it's like that thing that you were told, not good at math, you're not going to be good at numbers, so don't be an entrepreneur, or you're not creative enough for this, or you're just not smart. Like, there's a million stories, and then we interpret it. As you know, in coaching, it's all so much about the interpretation, and we spin it out. And then here we are with a reality that's weird.
And you know what the interesting thing? I was able to make peace with that, with what quote unquote happened to me, or the story when I realized that all of these stories, most of them, if not every single one of them, were created during our childhood and without our consent, without our knowledge. Our brain was just trying to make sense of something that happened to us, trying to protect us. And whether you are overachiever, you're a perfectionist, or you're a people pleaser or overthinker, anything that came probably from one experience, just one, that your brain told you, by the way, it is not safe to do anything unless it's perfect. Now you're a perfectionist. Or your brain said love is conditional. So you might have to outperform everyone else in order for your parents to love you and care for you. Or if you grew up in a sort of environment where people had, outbursts and there was a lot of dysfunction, then you become a people pleaser because you're trying to manage everyone's emotions because if something is dangerous, then if somebody is about to blow up, then it's not safe for you. And one thing that I've come to realize, because I've been partially people pleaser, partially perfectionist, is that we tend to feel bad about ourselves for being this way. And I think that the better way of approaching it is to understand that 12-year-old me, 8-year-old me was doing the best he could just to survive. And just bring your almost inner child along the way and thank them for being so. I understand why you are a people pleaser. I understand. I understand why you needed to do it. And I thank you for that because of you, I'm here where I am today. But now you don't have to drive anymore. I can take the wisdom
Yes.
from you. And what's the wisdom of a people pleaser? Knowing how to read the room, knowing how to read people's emotions and be more empathetic. And when you start doing that without having the desire or the need, okay, I need to fix everyone, then you're more in tune with your own self. but also you have this skill that elevates you, you know, in society. Want to
Yeah.
call it that way.
Well, it's like you know me already, Daniel, because I am a recovering people pleaser, and that is one of the superpowers of a people pleaser is they can read a room. And every job I've gone into, they're like, "Wow, you're really good at reading room." I was like, "Yeah, I'm anticipating everybody's needs so that I feel safe and I feel in control, and I don't want to wig out." And then you do build that skill, which really does serve you. You know, I've had a corporate career, and it serves you. So there is an appreciation that you have to have for that version of yourself that survived that way. Would you say that you mentioned people pleasing, you talked about kind of not feeling seen or heard. Are those some of the most common kind of subconscious beliefs that people have, or the most common issues that they're working through?
Partially, yes, but I think that number one, and almost it doesn't matter who I talk to, and it's been a fascinating topic for myself as well, is the thought or the feeling and belief of not being good enough is one of those things that I've been debating with because to me it's okay. If we believe that we're not good enough, if we believe that we don't belong, from an evolutionary standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Because if I say, we're talking about thousands, if not millions of years ago, that I feel that I don't belong to this tribe, then I'm going to die and I'm not going to have offsprings, the human race. But I do believe that it comes from a sense of inadequacy, it comes from a sense of that something happened. Doesn't matter what. I think it is people's number one, I wouldn't call it issue, but obstacle to overcome over their life. Because
Mhm.
once you fix that, we tend to seek external validation just to feel whole. And we think, okay, I need proof that I'm worthy. I need proof that I'm lovable. I need proof that people like me. Because feeling myself doesn't, it feels weird. I mean, because imagine that I have a ton of self love, but people reject me, then clearly I'm wrong, they're right, which is very similar
Mhm.
to what I've experienced with not being seen or even playing the visible role. If I have 8 out of 10 people that look at me and they don't want to deal with me because of too much or I started too much or something, then my brain starts thinking, oh, it doesn't matter how you see yourself because even if you see yourself this way, they don't, and there are more people, so you might be wrong.
Mm.
And what I've come to realize is when it comes to, once again, the sense of inadequacy that we have to feel that whole, it has to come from within, and everyone says the same thing. It's like, okay, it's not I mean, external validation doesn't matter. But what people haven't come to realize, and you need like a higher level of awareness, is when you receive that feedback, when you receive that compliment, when people like you might have a dopamine hit for a hot minute and then it
Mm.
disappears. Now you need to chase a new high, a new high, and it's never enough. And the hole gets, you feel that the hole gets bigger, but I think it's your desire and your longing gets bigger by just, hey, I have the house, I have the car, I have the jet, I have all of it, and yet still feel that why I still feel this way and it's not enough. And I think that is the number one thing that people struggle with. And it's something I've been still working on because even though I'm aware when you feel it, when you feel like,
Mm.
man, I
Mhm.
got rejected by this person, or maybe that person doesn't like me, or, you know, I just want to connect. And you don't get that, then the old story starts running. And if you go unconscious and you let it run wild, then it's just going to keep reinforcing the idea. So I think that one is the number one. Fear of being seen
Mhm.
is also another one, which has to be with, can I be, and it's been biggest one for me as well, can I be my authentic self and be safe?
Yeah. Yes. That was so well said. The not enoughness, I have so many thoughts on this because I do think a huge part of it is toxic societal programming that we need to be more, have more, do more. There's just this, it's infiltrating every part of our lives with this messaging constantly. Then you add on top of that any challenges that you may have grown up with. And I just think the society at large benefits from us trying to do more, have more, and be more all the time. So I think it can have a really negative impact on us because we always feel like we're falling short. And I think social media has a huge part of that. It's amazing in many ways, but I think a lot of the messaging is you're not doing enough, being enough, having enough, sweating enough, working out enough, funny enough. All of that messaging,
Mhm.
I think, is really because I'm just seeing an epidemic of insecurity.
Ah, by the way, I love that you mentioned that you feel that society just bringing this up a lot, and I just had a thought that I needed to share it before it went away. What if all of these things that we see is not by design? It's not that somebody's making it on purpose, but it's every single person projecting how
Mm,
they feel. And
yes.
it's all about. So imagine that you're super secure, Alana, super secure, confident, and you don't have that feeling of not being enough. And then you are a mirror to me of how I should feel or how I should be alive. Well, that is terrifying to me. And if I'm not ready to meet that part of me, I'm going to start projecting like, well, Lana, no, you don't have X, Y, and Z. And then I'm going to try to put you in the same state that I am. But unconsciously, I think that most people are not aware enough of what they're doing. And it's almost like, okay, if I feel this way, then I'm going to project and pretend and say that other people feel that way or people need to feel in a particular way just to feel safe with myself. Because if I'm the only one that feels this, well, guess what? There might be something wrong with me. And
Yeah.
it's a wild theory though.
No,
So
no,
who
it's
knows?
I don't think that's one well. I think we're all contributing to a collective consciousness that's reflected back to us all the time. And I think I would say part of my thoughts on this come for sure because I've worked in advertising marketing, which is all smoke and mirrors, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, all of marketing advertising is usually designed to make you feel insecure. Like you have to have something, FOMO, all that, right? So that is existing. And unless you're completely disconnected from it, you're not connected to that, or you would be connected to it. However, it is down to us to dig deep and to choose to consciously reject and become more true to our worth, like connecting to the worth that we actually have so that we can project it out. And I think there's some people out there doing amazing work with that. Any coach out there is trying to raise the world in terms of helping them feel seen, heard, authentic, all of that. So, yeah, it's a very interesting topic to me because I don't want to be that person. I'm very conscious of it as well. That's just blaming an external situation, right? So, because that rarely helps us.
It's simple, but not easy.
Yeah, so hard.
I
So
was,
hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I still wake up some days and just like really just have to feel like I'm battling just to feel good or to work through or whatever it is. So, okay, I just want to dip the toe back into what you were doing before this transformation because something must have led you. There's always a story to every coach is how they got to where they are. So what's that story for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So the coaching just really started like this year. But before that, back in 2022, 2023, well, 2022, a, I fell into deep depression. And a few months later, then my marriage completely fell apart. And I think that the reason why I fell into such a deep depression, I only see it now. It seems like it was like the perfect storm. I didn't have clarity where I wanted to go. I never had this passion or this vision. Like, okay, I used to, as we were talking off cameras, I used to be a financial analyst. To me, I was like, okay, it is fine. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with businesses. It's fine. But I never, even when I was a kid, never had this vision like, oh, I want to be a firefighter or I want to be an engineer or I want to be a doctor. Never had that crazy vision. So to me, the word passion was like overrated. So I kept doing that. So I didn't have a clarity in my life or direction. I knew, say, I'll just keep working for money because I need to pay my bills and all of that. On the other side, so there was one leg. There was another leg in which I didn't address a lot of internal problems. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pretend that I'm okay in terms of what insecurity, self doubt, wounds that I had that I never really cared to address because I felt it was kind of pointless. And the last one and the last leg of this tripod was that my marriage was sort of starting to fall apart. And I also subconsciously knew that, and I knew that we needed to do something in order to save it. So it all came to me, it all clashed at the same time, which took me to once again, like a deep, deep depression. And anyway, so I was like, for a year and a half, I was like very, very, well, actually for 2 years, I was very depressed. But a year and a half in, when my marriage was completely over, and I felt like completely alone, when my life had turned upside down, and I didn't understand anything about life. Like I say, what's the point of being with somebody for 9 years, which you thought was your person, and it just blew up. And for the first time in my life, I sat with myself and said, what do you really want? I mean, what do you really want? Because for me, I realized that I never put myself as a priority. Somewhere along the way, maybe when I was a kid, I felt that if my needs were not going to be met, and a need could be, hey, I want a hug, or maybe I want an ice cream, maybe I want to go to the park, something silly probably. Then my brain created this story of, well, what's it even the point of thinking about what you want if you're going to get disappointed? So I would put other people's priorities over mine. And that included me asking, what do I really want to do? Not what I think society wants me to do, not what I think my parents want me to do, but what does Daniel want to do? An idea of a podcast came to mind, but the idea of a podcast been in my mind for 5 years at that point. But for me, podcast, and I tell people this, in my mind was more as a hobby, meaning that I would treat it as a Lamborghini. If it happens, awesome. But if it didn't, no big deal. You wouldn't see me at 80 or 90 years old on my deathbed. I never had a podcast. No. But this time though, it was like, no, you need to chase. I mean, you need to follow this path. And 2023, I gave myself the last 5 months. I don't know anything about content creation. I don't know anything about editing or podcasting, nothing. I'm going to put 5 months to work on this, and I'm going to pursue it. And January of last year, I launched the podcast. I realized, or even I discovered a talent I didn't know that I have when it comes to interviewing people, having conversations. And I started following that intuition because at that point, for the first time, I had the clarity. And that intuition led me to public speaking and now coaching. Well, coaching, friends of mine have always told me, or at least for the last 10 years, that I should be a therapist or coach because I'm somebody who is very good at holding space for people and is very good at identifying subconscious beliefs. And I think because I never had that person for myself, so I became the person I wish I had in my life for myself. And that's how I end up being now like a coach and speaker and podcast.
That's great. And Daniel's podcast is called Redefining Wisdom. So definitely everyone check that out. I also have a theory about podcast hosts is that all of them are black sheep. That they were the ones that kind of went through the trenches and feel like, they want to help people with their story, right? So what happens to someone when they become conscious and aware and identify their subconscious beliefs?
Well, it is liberating, but at the same time can be painful. And that's why I believe that many people don't want to see it. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you know that the life that you have been living has been always in your control, yeah, there are a lot of things that we cannot control in life, like a ton of things. But we can control our thoughts, our actions, and the way we react to things. And if we go and I dive a lot into neuroscience when I'm coaching or when I'm speaking in terms of how our beliefs shape our reality because our brains predict more than they perceive. So, so what our brains do is they take past experiences and project them forward and creating a reality based on what your brain already believes who you are. So if you keep seeing the same patterns, like, well, people don't like, or I don't get good opportunities, or I keep going to interviews and they're picking someone else. You're repeating the same pattern because you still unconsciously believe that you're not enough or you're not worthy of the love or the friendship or the job. So once you see that, you realize, oh, it's always been on my power. But at the same time, well, if my life from now on doesn't change, I cannot blame anybody else. I can only blame myself because now I see it. So that is one side of the pain. The other side of the pain is the grief that comes from moving from one identity to another. And what do I mean by this? Just being with yourself or with your current identity, who you feel that you are, who you believe who you are. In my case, was to be this silent kid, the shy, who used to play small because if I shine too bright, people might feel weird about it. And I just want to connect. I don't want to intimidate somebody. I don't want to make other people feel insecure. I just want to connect. So let me play small. Let me be careful. Let me read everybody's emotions and make sure that everyone's fine. And because that part of you or that identity help you survive and help you made it this far, then you're too attached to it. So letting go, and it's not killing it, it's just adopting a new identity is painful in terms of you come to realize that we don't just grieve our losses, but we also grieve the parts of ourselves that we leave behind in the process of growth or evolution. And it comes to a point where you're like, but I like that person. I mean, I just you have built this or created this emotional bond, which is normal, it's natural, but that version of you is just holding you back. So that is probably the two biggest pains I see. One is, well, now a lot is in my power. I can truly control how I experience life. And the other, well, do I have the courage to build this new persona and to have more and more empowering identity that's going to help me build the future I want.
Yes, it's stepping into that new identity. Is huge and it's scary. Like it can be really scary because the truth is that things will change in your life. People around you, relationships, experiences, like so much changes. So there is grief, there is loss. And I love that you talked on that about that because so many people get excited about a new identity or any new opportunity and they look ahead and then the truth is you have to leave something behind. And that's tough. And I also
Mm.
always like to say that, or it can be hard when we no longer want what we wanted. So I do a lot of career coaching. And so some people, they are a graphic designer, let's say, because that's what I worked in. And then they realize one day they don't want that anymore. And it can be devastating when you no longer want that. You have to move to a new identity. Let's just say, I remember working with someone who wanted to become a massage therapist, right? So total shift. And that's building a whole new life, a whole new identity, leaving, kind of leaving behind your graphic designer friends, maybe not being a creative person 24/7. There's like a whole story that you're leaving behind, which can be really challenging.
And to add on top of that, for many of those people struggle with that is because you have the sunk cost fallacy. I already
Oh,
invested
yes.
so much time
Yes.
and effort and money. Are you kidding me? That is not at all for nothing. No, that was a chapter,
Yes.
but it's not the whole book.
Yeah, cost fallacy is like a huge thing to understand because staying in something because you put the time, the money, the effort into it, and then staying too long is just like, my friend likes to say, like, don't throw good money after bad, right? So it's the same idea. It's like, it's just different. It's hard. It's like to move on but it's ultimately this identity conversation that I think is most important because I think this is at the key, like kind of at the root of these shifts, like making a big shift. Can you see yourself as a new person, a different person? Are you willing to evolve and kind of grow through that growth process?
Do you want to change? Is the biggest
Yeah.
question I think people should ask themselves because we all want a better life. See, it's funny because
Yes.
I,
Good
I,
differentiation. Better life, but it will change. Yes.
you know, I was watching a movie about a month ago, and there was this phrase that they said, which was great. Uh, you need to be brave to live the life you want, and it was a great phrase. And I keep watching the movie. I pause it. I'm like, okay, why? I understand the concept. I
Mm.
understand that we need to be brave to live uh, to live the life we want. So I start asking myself, okay, because if living the life we want almost guarantees joy, fulfillment, happiness, then why do we need to have courage or why does fear show up? Well, because we have to deal with the all identity. We also have, which is at emotional level, we need to deal with biology in terms of, well, we're stepping into unfamiliar space.
Mhm.
And from an evolutionary standpoint, our brains are not designed to make us happy or to help us thrive, but to keep us safe. Anything unfamiliar signals to our nervous system, hey, that's dangerous. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So you need to override biology. You need to override the old stories. You need to override the wounds and the traumas at emotional level. And you need that courage. And for that, you need the courage to finally live the life that you want. And yeah, we all want it, but the change is, well,
We
yeah.
want it, but we're, like, not willing to do the work. It's like you hear people say, "Oh my god, I'd kill to have that kinda house or that kinda lifestyle." Okay, they'd kill, but would they, like, become financially savvy and change jobs or whatever it is required to get the fancy house, whatever it is? Are they willing to do it? And that's where people usually peace out and they hang on to just go to do Netflix, right? Because there's so much involved. So, what do you think was, like, the big catalyst for you? It sounds like you went through a lot, but was there, like, a moment, like, a catalyst that you were like, "Okay, this is it. I am changing my identity."
Yes. There was a part, even after started the podcast, I realized that because all the struggles that I've been going through or in my life, from the bullying for 20 years to several episodes of depression. I know that you have it before, but just to give the listeners some context as well, I I had cancer at 13, so it's always like a lot of struggles. And what happens in that sense, your body gets used to the suffering. Your body gets used to the cortisol and the stress response. It's almost like feels familiar. And I remember that I was at that was already year and a half after my divorce, and I kept feeling like miserable, sad, depressed. And I came across this quote by Alain de Botton, who is a British writer and philosopher. And he said, many times we don't suffer because we deserve to suffer. We suffer because we are far too familiar with the feeling of suffering. So I read that, and then a friend of mine recommended me the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe
Mhm,
Dispenza.
mhm.
And that book was transformational to me because it said, hey, your body has already created these automatic systems. If you're being suffering, depressed, sad for many months or even many years, then you might not have a reason to feel that way, or your body's already been efficient. It's going to make you feel that way. So once you start feeling it, your brain's going to start finding the thoughts that go in sync with that feeling, and then you're thinking and feeling and thinking. So it becomes this vicious cycle. I remember that was probably June last year that I started feeling this sadness or suffering or depression. And I had to put a hell of an effort mentally to say, no, we're not going there. It feels
Yeah.
familiar. It feels like home. That suffering feels like home, but we don't have to do it. And it's slowly but surely, because our brains are plastic, in neuroplasticity, eventually I was able to start transforming my life and the way that I perceive life and the way that I even perceive connections start changing because now my identity started changing.
Yes. I also love that book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Even just the title, like, just listening to that title, I was like, "Yeah, we can really it's a habit to be the way we are," and that's really the cornerstone of this podcast was me realizing, at a networking event that I went to with a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, that I was completely addicted to struggle, that it was more comfortable for me to be living in a state of struggle and stress and high cortisol and have a completely unregulated nervous system than to be in a calm, peaceful state because I was surrounded by all these entrepreneurs who were also in a major state of struggle. They were all broke, struggling, like just suffering for their company. And it just felt like I was in a room of mirrors. Like everyone was just reflecting back to me what I had experienced. And I was like, a very conscious moment. I was like, I don't want this for myself. Like, this sucks. Why am I, why am I in this space and sharing this space with so many people and then realizing I am one of those people and consciously that was a moment where I just was like, I'm going to shift things and it's been a very slow journey, but just it is realizing the subconscious belief that I have to struggle, life is a struggle, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And by the way, and the biggest thing that people should have if they discover this unconscious belief is to have compassion, because it's not that you're doing it because it's not that your brain's trying to sabotage you. It's not that it's not that there's something wrong with you. It's like that's safety for your brain and body.
Yeah.
Now, that's all. When you understand that resistance is struggle, not as something that is broken, but as biology, then you have a better relationship with it. I understand. Okay, so I just need to, instead of fighting fear, instead of fighting the struggle, what I need to do is to build more safety around it. So moving forward, or just stepping into this new identity, or even stepping into not struggling anymore, is the next natural step rather than why not go my way through
Mm,
the struggle.
yes. The compassion piece is huge. It all makes sense looking back that that small child version of myself was really just trying to cope, and my parents were also doing the best that they could, right? So it all makes
Mhm.
sense, and I do have a lot more compassion. There's just you have to have that moment where you want to change, you want to shift, and realizing that not being in a state of struggle, and sometimes this is still true, is deeply uncomfortable for me. That I've always gravitated towards chaos, stress, high cortisol, working in that catalytic state. And so when I started transitioning to a more peaceful, flowy lifestyle, it was like, what the F is this? This is weird. This feels awful. And then it's that new identity feels so strange. But you just keep going. Like, wouldn't you say that you just like how do you encourage your clients to just kind of keep moving into that identity when it feels deeply uncomfortable?
Well, I think that the reason why I'm able to help them out, or what I'm telling is I went through the journey. So I know exactly when you describe that feeling of, okay, this is weird, right? And I don't know if you have read this book. It's called The Big Leap by by Gay Hendricks.
Love that book. That is
Yeah.
like also I highly recommend that book. I give it to my clients. I love that book.
The upper limit problem
Yes.
is huge, because once you start to step into safety, your body says, okay, we don't like this. Let's go back to the struggle and let me
Yeah.
find a way to get our body feel
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And once you become aware, okay, especially, it's funny because I experienced it again, probably last week, that it finally something was happening in my life that was keeping me stressed. I was finally able to sort of cut it and detach emotionally, because I knew that I couldn't control a lot of those things. And I found peace. And the next morning, and it was on a whatever Thursday night. The next morning, my brain started putting images of all the things that would cause the similar feeling. I was like, no, we're not going. We're not going there. We, peace is safe. We are safe. We're good. But it's explaining to them. I think that people would have a better time, no, not with more knowledge, but with more understanding. Once you understand that all of this,
Yeah.
why it's happening, the reason behind it, whether it's biology or neuroscience or
Yeah.
anything, it's like all of this is normal. And once you see it from that lens, from that angle, and have the compassion, because at the end of the day, I think that the path of evolution or growth is the integration a lot of with your inner
Mm,
child. Just get to integrate those two parts and walking alongside, rather than, well, either one is driving the car or the other, but not communicating with each other. So to
yeah.
me, sometimes we even have, and this is mostly for men, I guess, because women have a better time dealing with emotions like sadness out of the blue,
Mm,
because obviously
mhm.
the the hormonal changes and all that, you
Yeah.
guys are more used to. You guys are
Yes.
more used to experience that. For one thing I experienced about 6 months ago, something triggered me in a way. Something happened in my life, wasn't a big deal. In a vacuum, wasn't a big deal. And I started feeling a lot of sadness, like
Mm,
like sadness, wanting to cry. And I realized that was my limbic system going off. But then my rational brain was, yeah, but this doesn't make sense. Why are you crying for something like this? It just, are you silly? Are you, what's wrong with you? And I have to stop myself from the judgment, because I didn't want to cry for what happened in the moment. That was an emotion that triggered something that happened 20 years ago.
mm,
And that was the emotion being released by the body. But my, but my rational brain was trying to explain it and to make sense based on the current event. So once you understand that, even especially men feel that they shouldn't cry, or because it's not about weakness, but because many times we associate that feeling with something that happened today, when probably is your 5-year-old self or 12-year-old self that wants to cry, and you need to create that safety around it so you can start processing and letting those emotions move through your body. That's how I think people truly change, is when they understand, back to the question, truly understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. And now, okay, this is normal. I understand. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, but at least I know why.
Yes, beautifully said. Yes, some of our pains, like they go back from childhood, and they come back to just give us a little nudge every once in a while, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, can I change gears for a second? Because I found out you did Toastmasters.
Yeah.
I also did Toastmasters. I have a whole episode on it, and I have a lot to say on it, and it was a really positive experience for me, I have to say. But can you just, as someone who had a stutter, you've talked about how you had a stutter, you wanted to shrink, you wanted to stay small. What made you jump into Toastmasters, which for many people is crazy intimidating?
This is probably one of the wildest stories that you'll hear, because even to me it doesn't make any sense. and and I think it's because that's when I start, and I'll definitely dive into the question, but that's when I start thinking, okay, we're all meant to do something here. And when you cannot explain certain things in life, okay, then you say, okay, I guess this is my path. So as you know, I grew up with stutter. I'm a native Spanish speaker, and I stutter way more in Spanish than in English. But public speaking is the number one fear, at least in America.
Yep.
Number three is fear of heights. Number two is like fear of snakes. Number one, fear of public speaking. It's terrifying. So for somebody like me who had such a horrible experience, even talking to people,
Mm.
to me to give presentations in class was awful. And I graduated from college in 2012, and I didn't give any presentations at all. I mean, neither in Spanish nor in English for like 13 years. But the interesting thing about intuition is the same intuition that led me to the podcast was the same intuition that sort of led me to Toastmasters, in terms of I was getting signs from the universe. Okay, Toastmasters, fine, I'll join Toastmaster. And I remember going on a meeting the first week of December of last year. I liked it. It's okay. I'm going to join them in January. And just how timing works weirdly, you know, sort of like some synchronicities and things like that. I released my first podcast episode on January 3rd, 2024. I was looking back just a few weeks ago when I submitted my application to become a member of this club. It was like January 3rd, 2025. It's like, okay, that is a weird coincidence.
Mm.
So I submitted, and right away I scheduled my icebreaker. For those who don't know, it's the first speech that you should give. It's sort of like an
Yes.
introduction to yourself. And
People
I
are
didn't,
sweating just hearing about the word icebreaker, just as you're saying that.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't remember this, but I was trying to look back for that speech, and I never wrote it down, ever. But the interesting thing is that I stood on that stage in front of whatever, 15, 20 people, and just share my icebreaker, my story. I had this storyline. I was so comfortable, such a good speaker. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, sure, I need to fix my pace and speak way, way too fast. I have to make better eye contact. But to me, it's like, I don't understand how I'm not as nervous as other people,
Yeah.
or freaking out when I
Yeah.
should. I mean, I should, and I
You
don't
should be
get it.
dead, really, apparently.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
I mean, I should. And then I realized, okay, this is part of your essence, your path.
yeah.
Because since then, well, I will say this: when after giving the speech, I fell in love with the craft. I fell in love with the idea of sharing, teaching insights, wisdom, life lessons to others through storytelling, and hopefully planting a seed in their minds that one day will, just turn to something positive. And that, I mean, this is something that not many people do. And I just became almost obsessed with it, obsessed in a way of just sharing. That since then, I joined January this year, and it's been October, in sort of 10 months, nine, yeah, 9 months. I've given already like 13 speeches, like boom, 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 boom. And the reason was following your intuition. And I think that that's why, to me, I cannot explain how I still felt some level of anxiety and nervousness and all of that. But I realized that that has always, your essence or your true self has always been there, hidden under the old blueprints and the fears of the shy one or the people pleaser or the perfectionist. Like once you remove all that false stories, then you at the center, you find the essence. And I think the way that I like to picture it, if I don't know if you read the fairy tale The Princess and the Pea,
Hmm.
how you have a pea, you have like 20 mattresses and all of
Yes.
that. So I do believe that that pea is our essence. And once we start
Mm.
removing all these mattresses and the beds, which is, well, I'm not enough, or I'm too shy, or I should play small, or I should please everyone, or I should be perfect. Once you release it, then you're at the center with just a P, which is who you truly are.
Mm.
And I think life goal is to go back to that place, or becoming the person who you always were before the world told you to be. Sort of
Yes.
like that.
Yes. And I find it so fascinating how we sometimes discover that we're good at things that we never thought we would be good at. Like, that's just wild to me that you just got onto the stage and you're like, this isn't that hard or that awful. And I know what it's like to go through those Toastmaster speeches. For those of you who haven't been through it, like your whole group that's you're in front of, they have to give you feedback and they critique you. And like, it's a lot. I mean, it's an amazing learning process. And you do need, I will say, you do need some courage to do it. But I mean, the fact that you stood there and I just find that really interesting. And we're like, you know what? I don't totally suck at this. I think that's amazing.
And I really pushed the envelope. This is a story that, I mean, I'm glad that you're not talking today, because literally that happened 2 days ago. I had a speech in which, based on the pathway, this was supposed to be a 12 to 15-minute speech, not your normal 5 to 7.
Hmm.
And the challenge of the speech is you have people that will heckle you, audience that will interrupt you, ask you questions, and whisper around, and you have to address them without losing your trail of thoughts. So that on itself is already challenging. But because, I don't know, because I have crazy ideas, I decided to tell my evaluator, you know what? I want you to choose my topic for me, and you're going to give it to me 5 minutes before my speech.
Oh my gosh.
Let me see if I can be in a flow state, speak
Yeah.
from full consciousness, and not freak out in the moment. I was freaking out before the speech. I was like, no, I was about to cancel because I truly felt obnoxious. I felt like 2 hours before the speech, like, Daniel, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? And I realized, well, you thought it was cool back then, but and it went pretty well. It went better than expected. But I think is once you find that thing that you're good at or you're meant to do, then you find the courage or almost the energy natural without
Yes.
forcing it to reach new heights.
Yes, I think that's huge. I just love that you just said that. It's like once you get a taste of something that you think you can do, or it's like you just get literally this taste for it and you are willing to put yourself out there. You're willing to maybe look a little stupid. You're willing to put some money in it. You're willing to just push yourself. And I think that's when the greatness happens. That's when we see success. That's when we feel confident, right? We prove that we can be competent, which leads to the confidence.
100%.
Oh, I love that story. Okay, so now I want to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, and that is
Mhm.
in the spirit of helping people ditch the struggle, what do you think is the most important thing to commit to?
Huh. It's funny because I can say so many different things, but if I can give people one thing, which sits at the very root of transformation, perhaps, would be self-compassion and kindness with yourself. Because once you start developing that muscle, you start trusting yourself more.
Mm.
Once you start trusting yourself more, you're more likely to be more vulnerable, more authentic. Once you're more vulnerable, more authentic, you get more courage. Once you're courage, you can achieve more things in life. But if you treat yourself like, and I give this example, the way that we judge ourselves and punish ourselves is, if I were going to draw an image or an analogy, imagine that you see a dog who's being physically abused by its owner. the dog is in the corner, terrified, even about to attack you, that doesn't mean that the dog is not kind. And there's nothing wrong with the dog. It's the owner's fault. That's your inner child. Yes, that's your nervous system. And when you nurture it, then you give the safety to express more and trust yourself more. And speaking about that speech I gave like a couple of days ago, I wouldn't have been able to do so if I hadn't started building that self-trust. That all started with compassion and understanding that I was doing the best I could with the information I had in the moment. I couldn't judge myself with the wisdom today for who I was yesterday. And I think that will help a lot of people to overcome a lot of struggles.
Yes, the self-compassion. It's like the domino effect. Well, we're
Mhm,
talking about self-love, really, at the end of the day. We're
mhm.
talking about like actually having that for ourselves. And again, I don't think we're really taught that. That's something that we have to like connect back to and re-educate ourselves on and practice, like practice it daily.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's something that is basic, huge.
amazing. So, where can people find you and follow you and find more of your content? Because I'm sure there's people that are dying to reinvent their identity at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Uh, any of my socials, Daniel M. Cianci, that is Daniel MCIANCI, TikTok, Instagram. My website is Daniel M. Cianci if you want coaching or having me speak in your events or companies, all of that. And yeah, follow Redefining Wisdom on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any
All the
of
things.
those.
Well, I will put all
Yeah.
the links to your socials, your podcast below. And yeah, I know if I was working in like a corporate space, I would love to have someone like you talk because it's very inspiring to get out of our own heads in terms of how we view things. And especially like, I don't know, again, my corporate culture background, it pushes you down and makes you kind of see things through a very specific lens. And I think it's great that someone like you is kind of helping to open up people's visions, their perspectives, and how they see things. So thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you. And you're a great host. I mean, as somebody who has a podcast, I just feel, I feel more energized after this conversation. It was
Me
awesome.
too. Me
So
too.
thank you.
I love talking with you, Daniel. So we will chat again. Take care,
Mhm.
Daniel.
You too.
Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so, so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.